It started like any other episode of The View, the clinking of coffee mugs, the layered laughter of practiced camaraderie, the promise of conversation that teetered between controversy and pageantry. And when Robert De Niro walked onto the stage, the audience rose with a kind of reverent energy reserved for Hollywood royalty. And for the first 15 minutes, everything played out predictably. He spoke about his latest indie project, his thoughts on aging in the industry, his beloved New York, but beneath the surface, tension brewed in glances and pauses, particularly when the topic drifted toward politics, which it always did. And while De Niro had long been known for his outspoken criticisms of former presidents and his passionate defense of artistic freedom, Whoopi Goldberg had her own views on restraint, responsibility, and how the table of national conversation required not just fury, but focus. And it was when the topic turned to Hollywood's role in political discourse that the mood shifted from chatty to charged. As Whoopi.com, but pointed, suggested that celebrities sometimes overstep, using their platforms less to enlighten and more to inflame, and De Niro leaned forward, narrowed his eyes, and asked sharply, "And what would you have us do, sit quietly while the country burns?" And the room fell still, the co-hosts caught between intervening and observing, while the audience's discomfort began to ripple into quiet coughs and tightened smiles. And Whoopi replied that artists have power but also a responsibility to wield it without becoming what they protest, to which De Niro, voice raised now, said, "You've got the nerve to lecture me about protest? I've seen more in my years on set than most senators see in a term." And Whoopi, clearly holding back, answered, "Being loud doesn't mean you're leading," and that's when De Niro snapped, slapping the table with the flat of his palm and saying, "Spare me the sanctimony. You sit here every day acting like you've got all the answers. It's because you're not afraid to talk over everyone." And Joy Behar tried to cut in with a joke, but the air was already too heavy, the moment too personal, and Whoopi sat up, her smile gone, her tone ironclad as she said, "You came here to talk about your film, not lecture this panel like we're extras in your monologue." And that was the line that broke whatever leash De Niro had on his temper as he stood up from the table, took off his microphone mid-sentence, muttering something off mic that viewers later tried to decipher frame by frame, and stormed off stage. The live show cutting to commercial with the kind of scrambling usually reserved for technical difficulties or actual emergencies, and within minutes, the internet had erupted, with hashtag De Niro walks off, hashtag Whoopi clap back, and hashtag The View chaos all trending simultaneously. Each clip dissected and re-uploaded, slowed down and captioned, turned into TikToks and memes and commentary videos, as people across the spectrum weighed in on who had overstepped, who had outshined, and who had simply refused to play nice anymore. And ABC released a tight-lipped statement saying only that Mr. De Niro's appearance on The View was cut short due to unforeseen circumstances. But the damager, the revelation, depending on the viewer, had already landed, and the following night, on a late show interview, Whoopi addressed the moment by saying, "I've got nothing but respect for Bob's talent. But when you come into someone else's house, you don't throw the furniture just because you don't like the wallpaper." And her audience roared, while De Niro, for his part, stayed, mostly silent, showing only a brief Instagram post with a black and white photo of himself looking out a window and the caption still standing, which only fanned the flame of speculation and tribal debate across social platforms. And as media outlets began digging deeper, stories resurfaced of De Niro's past clashes with talk show hosts, his infamous stares, his refusal to tolerate soft questions, and fans began choosing sides. Some praising him as the last of the old-school rebels who speak truth to mediocrity, others critiquing his outburst as just another man unable to handle, being challenged by a woman who knew her own mind. And yet what no one could deny was that the moment had cracked open something raw, something rarely exposed in the gloss of daytime television, a real confrontation between two cultural giants who had spent decades forging their identities on very public stages, and the fallout was not just gossip, but a mirror reflecting the growing tension between entertainment and ideology, between old-guard methods of protest and new-age calls for nuance. And even as publicists tried to steer the narrative back toward box office numbers and upcoming projects, The moment refused to die because it had touched something deeper, something about authority and authenticity, about what happens when people who are used to being listened to are finally challenged without apology. And in the weeks that followed, Whoopi's seat at the View became something of a lightning rod, drawing even more heated guests, more barbed conversations, while De Niro doubled down in a Rolling Stone interview, saying, "I'd rather be walked off 10 shows than stay silent on one," which once again went viral and reignited the debate, and yet in private. Sources close to the actor said he regretted losing his cool, not his words, but the way he delivered them, while Whoopi reportedly told producers she had no intention of making peace or dragging it out further, that what was said, and that people could make up their own minds, and they did, not with votes, but with views, with shares, with endless dissection of a moment that captured more than a spat. It captured the tension of two icons who had carried the weight of their industries now colliding on the battlefield of values, rage, and visibility, leaving behind not just a mess, but a mark.